Hi everyone, this is Dr. Mike, host of the free iTunes podcast, Psychiatric Secrets Revealed with Dr. Mike. But that's not why I'm here today. This is another Saving Savvy episode. This time we're going to look at some of those cheap, unlocked Chinese cell phones. Actually, we're going to look at two of them. One's called the Aspire, and the other one's called the Amigo. And they have some common characteristics. These tend to look sort of like Blackberries, but they're not Blackberries. They just look like Blackberries. They're unlocked, and what that means in the U.S. is that you can use them pretty much on any GSM network. Most U.S. cell phones are locked to the particular carrier. These are unlocked. By GSM, that's a format that's used pretty much throughout the world for cell phones. In our country, the two carriers that use the GSM format are T-Mobile and AT&T. So we're only talking about those two phones. These particular phones also take two SIM cards, which means that you could technically have basically two phones in one. You could have your personal number on one SIM card and maybe a business phone number on the other SIM card. Or if you travel internationally, you could have an international card in one of the slots, and you have like a local phone number if you're in London or someplace like that. These phones basically are 2G, they're not 3G or 4G, and a lot of the other phones, if you look on eBay for instance, will say blah 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 3G. I don't think they're 3G, I think they're actually 2G, but you might want to check that out further. These are also, just so you know, both of them are feature phones, which means they are not smartphones. They look like smartphones, but they're feature phones. In other words, they have little extra features like a keypad or an MP3 player, but they're not smartphones. And they both come with a micro SD slot that will hold up to 8 gigabytes of memory, and they come included with a 2 gigabyte card, so you have a little extra memory with them. A few accessories come with them, like a charger, a USB cable, which is part of the charger, and a set of earphones and a battery. That's about it. And let's look at how they work. So the first one to talk about is this Aspire. This sells for anywhere between $60 and maybe $100, depending on where you buy it. Definitely can buy it on eBay. It's a nice solid feel, feels really good in the hand. Keyboard's a little bit on the smaller side, but is definitely workable. But there's many flaws with this particular phone. Again, I'm just looking at a sample size of one. Maybe I just have a bad phone. But for instance, I found that this trackpad was absolutely maddening to use. Very, very difficult for my big fingers. Maybe it was designed for smaller fingers. It would do very annoying things like the wallpaper would suddenly just change and it would go bring, and the wallpaper would change, and I could not turn that off. And some of the wallpaper choices were not really appropriate for Dr. Mike. For instance, Hello Kitty. I didn't really want a Hello Kitty wallpaper on my phone, but that's what I would get stuck with. It has a USB charging port, but the computer, my Windows-based computer, would not recognize this as a USB drive, so it's just basically a charging port. And if you want to add music to your little micro SD card, I guess you'd have to disassemble the phone and take the card out and put it in a little adapter and do it that way, but you can't do it through the phone. And I found the phone quality was not very good. It was very loud, and it sounded good for me on the receiving end, but many people complained of static, which seems so unusual with the digital phone, but they complained that the phone was very staticky. So overall, I found the fact that it had poor documentation, this horrible trackball, not a particularly wide variety of features, and poor phone quality. I would say this would be, for me personally, a pass. I would rather have just a basic phone, just even a simple flip phone, over this if it was a brand name phone. Let's talk about the Amigo. This is another phone, sells for a little bit more money, typically around $80 to, I've seen, $200, but typically around that $120 to $150 price point on eBay and other sources. This one's a little bit bigger than the Aspire. Also has a BlackBerry form factor, but again, it's not BlackBerry. It's just It's just a feature phone. It is not a smartphone. Keypad's a little bit bigger, which is a little bit easier to type on. The phone feels fine, but a little more plasticky. But it really actually works as a phone. It has a touch screen, which isn't great, but it does work. It has a lot of extra features. In fact, it even has an analog TV receiver, but unfortunately in the US now we have digital TV, so it doesn't do very much. It has a workable radio for FM I tried the MP3 player and the photo viewer, and they seem to work okay. It also will support Java games if you want to download some Java games. And instead of just having a simple WAP browser, it does have a simple browser, but it's Opera Mini, so it's a little more flexible, a little nicer to use. And I was able to get the internet to work on this phone. I thought the internet for a 2G phone worked just fine. Since it has Wi-Fi built in, you can always connect to your Wi-Fi hotspot and save your data charges, and that worked, I think, reasonably well too. Call quality I thought was adequate to good. My only complaint was that it was kind of soft. Not a problem if you're in a soft work environment or home environment, or you're in the car. It might be a little bit bigger problem if you were, in a busy, noisy place. You might not be able to hear it quite so well. So I'd say the features in this phone generally works. I was pretty much satisfied with it. I thought the price point was good, and so this would be a recommend. So this is the Amigo, and I don't know who makes it. Probably Brand X, and this is, which I would recommend, this is the Aspire, which my version I thought was not very good, and I would not recommend it, at least based on that version. So again, the people that would want a phone like this, a couple people, if you travel internationally and you want an unlocked GSM cell phone, there you go. The phone would work fine for that. If you were trying to run out your contract and your current contract phone was not working properly, as long as it was AT&T or T-Mobile, you could just take your SIM card out and plug it in one of these phones and have it work. Or if you wanted to have a business number with a SIM card and a private number with a SIM card, both in one phone, so you didn't have to carry around two devices, you could use these phones for that too. Again, they're feature phones. They're not smartphones. They do not connect or sync with Outlook or those sorts of things, so don't expect that. But if you want kind of a fun phone, just to do some fun activities, and looks reasonably nice, looks like you got a fancy BlackBerry going on here. This Amigo, I think, would definitely, or maybe it's Amiga, I think it's Amigo, but would maybe do the job for you. And there's a lot of other choices too. So where do you get these phones? You get these Chinese clone phones everywhere. Some of them look like iPhones. They're not iPhones. They look like iPhones. But you can get them on eBay. You can get them on many different sites on the internet. Just type in Chinese clone phone, and you'll be assaulted with a huge variety of different choices. So with that, I'll say have a nice day. If you have some time, give my podcast a listen, Psychiatric Secrets Revealed with Dr. Mike. It's free. It's on iTunes. I think it offers some really good information if you like psychology and that sort of thing. Take care.